Sweden and the first thing that comes to mind is IKEA, perhaps ABBA, or even Zlatan Ibrahimovic, but most definitely Volvo. This is the Volvo S90 T5 Momentum. It's stimulated by China, conceived in Sweden, and delivered in Malaysia. On that note, is it still a quintessential Volvo? Does it still have the little Swedish quirks, yet with an undying dedication to preserving lives? Let's find out. Decade after decade, Volvo has built some of the safest cars known to men, pioneering innovative safety features used till this day, most of which have even been adopted by other cars. You have the safety cage in the 40s, 3-point safety belt in the 50s, safety door locks in the 60s, a time when smoking was still considered to be good for you. There was side impact protection, rollover protection, and whiplash protection. Seriously, why isn't Volvo making condoms? That safety cage from the 40s I told you about earlier, that technology is still used till this day, as the core of this S90's sleek body is made of ultra high strength boron steel, one of the strongest types of steel available today. This is something that Volvo is particularly proud of, almost cocky to an extent. To show you just how cocky they were, have a look at this video.
And because Volvos are built strong, they hold up. Of course, we can't guarantee how long. But we do know Volvos are built so well that in Sweden they last an average of 11 years. Now that's a hard job.
Damn cocky, right? But I'm glad the Volvos of today don't look like this anymore. Gone are the days where safety came at the expense of design. Nowadays, you get a handsome front end that looks almost like the head of a shark. And with this T5 model, you get a different, more subdued grille design. While at the back, I wouldn't exactly call it ugly, but I'm still not convinced if it's good looking. But then again, there's nothing quite like it, is there? The equipment list is rather impressive as well. You get LED headlamps with cornering function and active high beam, and this beautiful set of 19-inch wheels with Michelin PS4 tyres. As for boot space, it's still massive at 500 litres, just like the T8, but unlike the T8 where you get a tyre repair kit, this one actually comes with a space saver spare wheel. But as a consequence, the fuel tank is actually 5 litres smaller at 55 litres. The general feel of the cabin, I must say, feels quite plush. There are soft touch materials at almost every possible surface. It's a good thing. And these seats, one of the most, if not the most comfortable in the business. Everything from the padding, the contour, and this may not be for everyone, but even the creases on the leather upholstery is just right. I really like this seasoned look to it. Overall, it's a nice place to be. But here's the thing, because this is the T5, you get polished metal trims. Nothing wrong with it. I actually like it for most cars, but not in this. I would have preferred the bright wooden trims. It feels a bit too cold, too sterile, a bit too German. I feel like it would have much more character with a more neutral Scandinavian theme to it, like this living room ensemble, for example. I may have visited IKEA a bit too often for my own good, so I'd really appreciate your thoughts on this. Ah yes, the infamous tablet-like touchscreen. All credit where it's due, it's really smooth and quick to respond, but somehow for me, it feels all over the place. The younger guys in the office seem to like it, and the slightly old, GC Ma seems to be okay with it, but I think the even older crowd, people like my dad for example, might find it a bit too irritating. He thought it was a bit all over the place. It connects to your phone almost instantly, but here's what puzzles me. In this T5 model, you don't get this sort of roller to go through the different drive modes, but instead, what you get is a sports mode with ESC off. Why would I want ESC off in a Volvo? Making a safe car unsafe. Why can't I just get a normal sports mode? The armrest storage is a little more spacious because unlike the T8, you don't get the batteries in the center tunnel. But here's what I think is lacking a bit of that Scandinavian thoughtfulness. Take this bottle holder by the door panel for example. It fits a 500 ml bottle perfectly, but it doesn't actually hold it too well. If you ask me personally, I would have preferred knobs for the aircon control instead of the volume over here, because you can already control the volumes on the steering wheel. I find it a bit too distracting having to look at the screen to access the aircon controls. With the aircon knobs over here, it would be so much more convenient. You may not notice this immediately, but for a car this size, the opening is actually quite small. But here's a distinctively Volvo feature that I think you'd appreciate if you had a 6 to 8 year old child. Check this out. Booster seat. And if you have another one that's in the same age group, or maybe even a twin, there's another one on that side. You get aircon vents by the B-pillar here, but sadly, none here. And I must say, it does feel a tad roomier compared to both its German rivals. Even with the driver's seat adjusted to my driving position, look at the amount of space I have. It's quite impressive. I'm not sure if it's elegant, minimalist, or even just that Swedish understatedness. Or is it just bland? Perhaps it's just Volvo being Volvo, but it just doesn't feel special enough. It doesn't show enough of its character. Speaking of character, I was just thinking the other day, nowadays every car with a 2-litre turbocharged engine, whether it's a Golf GTI or 520i or even the GLC 250, they all have the same horsepower at around 250, same torque output at around 350, 0 to 100 is essentially the same at around 6 seconds. So does that mean that they're all the same car, that they lack their own distinct character? That's not entirely true. The GTI is quite pokey, quite eager. The 520i is like a sports shoe, but for the more mature driver. Well, the GLC is just shiny, and the Volvo, it feels like a tank, like a proper Volvo. There's just something about knowing that you're sitting in one of the safest cars money can buy. It's not to say that the Mercedes or the BMW feels like you're sitting on the edge of a cliff, but in the Volvo you just feel so much more secure. And it reminds you too how secure it is and what a safe car you've bought every time you start the car, displaying all the safety features on the instrument cluster here. What I find particularly interesting is the fuel warning that pops up in front here that's accompanied by a suggestion. Would you like to go to Petronas, for example? Select accept and the navigation automatically pops up and off you go. What's not very IKEA though is this B-pillar right here. From where I'm sitting, which I assume is the default driving position for most of you guys, visibility can be quite limited. So you either gotta be a petite Asian lady driving like this, or a basketball player to properly check your blind spots. Unless of course you rely solely on the blind spot indicator, which obviously is never a good idea. The pilot assist system though, I don't think I'll ever get tired of it. It will never cease to amuse me. It's perfect for traffic jams. Simply turn it on, set the speed limit and the distance you want to be from the car ahead of you, and let the car accelerate and brake on its own. If you insist on being a stubborn and play with your phone while you're driving, at least you know there's an extra safety net for when you need to reply your important business emails or even booty calls. Who knows? On the highways, it's even more brilliant. When you're going through certain bends, to an extent the steering can even steer on its own, but you'd be a complete fool to actually trust it to drive on its own. It's not supposed to take over full control, but instead just offer a more relaxing drive. Being 300 kilograms lighter than the T8, mainly because you don't have to carry all those batteries, and partly because it's front-wheel drive instead of all-wheel drive, does have an effect on how the car feels. It just feels a lot livelier. But at about 338,000, 10 more than the 520i, what I consider the benchmark of this category, while it may have a comprehensive and competent set of safety features, even active bending lights that can swivel faster than your eyes can look, I wish they could have thrown in some form of adaptive dampers for when you feel a little more excited behind the wheel. All in all, it's a rather smooth car, but only in its individual aspect. like the way the engine revs and the way the gear changes. But as a unit, it's just not as good as the BMW. It's just not as fluid. One quick test drive in both cars, the T5 and the 520i, back to back, and you'd immediately notice how much more in sync the BMW is in terms of engine, transmission, and even throttle response. It's not to say this S90 T5 is terrible. In fact, it's really good, but the BMW is just that much better if you're looking for something that's comfortable, practical, yet you can drive the wheels off it when you feel a little excited once in a while. But that's the thing, you don't buy a Volvo expecting it to be a super sharp driver's car. They drive really well, but they're not about being incredibly engaging or even hair-raising, but instead more to being understated, calming, sturdy. And in that sense, I think the Volvo just nails all of the above. So, as is always the case, is this car for you? You gotta ask yourself, what are you looking for out of your 300,000 ringgit car? If you don't mind something that's less engaging to drive, but you know very well that you, and more importantly, your family would most likely be unscathed from any mishaps on the road, then yes, have a look at the Volvo. But if you don't mind something that's less impressive on the safety front, but is quite simply the ultimate driving machine, then look the other way. Alright, I forgot about the Mercedes. Well, the Mercedes, you buy it simply because you want to impress people. For more information on the Volvo S90 T5, do log on to AutoBuzz.my. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, share it, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, don't forget to hit the bell icon for the latest notifications on our newest videos. Shit, I've totally forgot my lines already. And these seats, probably... What the creases on the leathers upper. It's comfortable seats. This place damn a lot of ants eh.